Those seats are for real grandkids, my dad said after I paid for the holiday dinner, hired the photographer, brought every gift, then watched my kids get pushed behind a pillar so my sister's son could take their places. My daughter started crying into my coat. I looked at the head table and said, "Count to 15. At 11, Mom grabbed Dad's arm. "My name is Cole, 36. And this is the third holiday dinner I've paid for and the last one I'll ever attend. Let me walk you through December 22nd. We pulled into the parking lot at 5:40 p.m. Private dining room at Marcello's, a restaurant on the east side I'd booked 6 weeks earlier. Deposit, $1,200. Prefix dinner for 12, $2,400. Private room hold, $600. Total before wine, photographer, and gifts for $1,200. Ava was in the back seat. She's 7. She was wearing a green velvet dress Camille found at a consignment shop for $34 that looked like it cost 10 times that. And she'd been talking about the dinner for 2 weeks because I told her she'd sit at the big table this year. I told her that because I arranged it. Her name was on the seating chart. I emailed it to the restaurant myself. Marcus was next to her. 5. He was holding a stuffed dinosaur named Hank that goes everywhere Marcus goes, including, apparently, formal holiday dinners. I didn't argue with the dinosaur. Some battles aren't worth it. Hank came. Camille looked at me in the parking lot and said, "You okay?" I said yeah. I wasn't. But I had a folder in my coat with 3 years of receipts, and I told myself this was the last time. Either it would be different or it would be final. Inside, the hostess stand. I checked the seating chart, the one I'd emailed 2 weeks earlier. Ava and Marcus at the head table. Seats 4 and 5. Right next to me and Camille. The printed chart on the hostess stand was different. My children's names were moved to a side table near the kitchen entrance. In their place at the head table, Tyler. Seat 4. Center. In handwriting I recognized. Nina's. The hostess, a woman named Maria with a pen behind her ear and the expression of someone who has seen families rearrange seating charts before and knows it never ends well, confirmed. Your sister came in about 30 minutes ago. Said you'd approve the changes. I hadn't. Jules was already inside. Jules is the photographer. She shot all 3 holiday dinners. She keeps a cloud archive organized by event. This year, I'd asked her to compile something specific. Every photo from 3 years where my children appear. She sent the folder last week. 847 photos across 3 events. My children appear in 23. Head table 0. Formal group shot 0. They are in the background, the edges, behind shoulders, behind furniture. Jules added a note at the bottom of the email. I don't usually comment on client-family dynamics. But I noticed. Jules pulled me aside the moment I walked in. She said quietly, "Your sister talked to me in the parking lot. She asked me to focus on the head table and said your kids should be in Candids only, not the formal group. She said it was your idea." Jules didn't believe it. She's a professional. She reads contracts. My contract said the opposite. She'd already documented the conversation. I need to tell you about the 3 years before this dinner. Because this isn't one bad night. This is a system. Year 1. I paid $3,100 for the holiday dinner. My kids sat at a children's table in the corner. I said nothing. Camille cried in the car on the way home. Quiet crying. The kind where you don't make a sound because you don't want the kids to hear from the back seat. I held her hand at a red light and said, "Next year will be different." I meant it. I was wrong. Year 2. $3,800. My kids were left out of the family photo entirely. Jules was shooting. I saw the proofs afterward. 12 people in the formal group. My children weren't in it. I asked my mother why. She said, "They were running around. We couldn't get them to sit still." They weren't running around. I checked Jules's timestamp metadata. At the time of the group photo, Ava was sitting in my lap and Marcus was asleep in his stroller. They were available. They weren't asked. Year 3. This one. $4,200. The pillar. $11,100 across 3 dinners. My money. My planning. My photographer. My gifts. And every year, my children end up smaller in the frame. The gifts. I need to explain this because it matters for what happens at 13 seconds. For 4 years, I've bought every holiday gift and tagged them from Grandma and Grandpa. My parents asked me to do this. Lorraine said, "We want to feel like proper grandparents, but things are tight." Things are tight. I send them $800 a month toward their property taxes. Half for 6 years. $57,600. My sister Nina sends nothing. Her husband sends nothing. But their son Tyler gets new shoes every quarter from Grandpa Frank. Gets taken to baseball games. Gets a bedroom at Frank and Lorraine's house with his name painted on the door in blue letters. My children have never slept at their grandparents' house. There's no room. Tyler's room is the spare bedroom. The $800 I send monthly helps maintain the house where my children are not welcome to sleep, but Tyler's name is on a door. This year's gifts, $2,800. 22 presents. Every single tag says, from Grandma and Grandpa. I buy them. I wrap them. I write the tags. I drive them to the restaurant in 2 trips, because 22 wrapped presents don't fit in one load. My children will open these gifts and believe their grandparents spent weeks thinking about what a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old would love. The grandparents didn't think about it. They didn't shop. They didn't wrap. They didn't drive. They just take the credit and adjust the seating chart. They are grandparents the way a logo is a company. The branding is there. The work is outsourced. I want to give you the full financial picture because FRT means receipts and receipts mean precision, and precision is the only language my family has never learned to speak. Year 1 dinner, $3,100. Venue, $800. Food, $1,600. Photographer, $400. Gifts that year, $1,900. Wine, $300. Total year 1 investment in a family that sat my kids at a corner table, $5,000. Year 2 dinner, $3,800. Venue went up. Food went up. Photographer, $600 because I upgraded to full event coverage. Gifts, $2,200. Wine, $280. Total year 2, the year my kids were excluded from the family photo, $6,880. Year 3, this one, for $1,200. Venue, $1,200 deposit plus $600 private room. Food, $2,400 prefix for 12. Photographer, $800. Jules's full package, 3-year client rate. Gifts, $2,800. Wine including the $340 Barolo that Frank is currently drinking while my daughter cries, $540. Total year 3, $8,340. 3-year total spent on holiday dinners where my children were systematically excluded, $20,220. Add the $800 per month for 6 years, $57,600. Combined family subsidy from the son whose children aren't real, $77,820. That's the number, $77,820. The price of being the son who shows up, pays up, and shuts up. Until tonight. 2 years ago, I adopted Ava and Marcus. Legally. Fully. My name on the birth certificates. Court stamped. Judge Williams signed the papers at 10:47 a.m. on a Wednesday in March. Camille cried. I cried. The court clerk, a woman who processes adoption papers daily and has presumably seen every emotion the human face can produce, handed me tissues from a box she keeps specifically for this purpose and said, "Congratulations, Dad." 2 words from a stranger that hit harder than anything my family has ever said. Frank didn't attend. He said he had a doctor's appointment. The appointment was at 2 p.m. The hearing was at 10 a.m. 4 hours apart. Plenty of time. He didn't come. 3 weeks later, during a phone call about Thanksgiving, Lorraine accidentally said, "Your father was tired from Tyler's game that Saturday." Then went quiet. Because she realized which Saturday. Frank was at a 9-year-old soccer game while his son was in a courtroom becoming a father. That's not a scheduling conflict. That's a priority list. My name is below the fold. It's always been below the fold. But Frank wasn't always this version of himself. I need to say that because what comes next will make him sound like a monster. And the truth is more complicated than monsters. When I was 11 and got into a fight at school, the only fight I've ever been in, a kid named Derek Pullman said something about my mother that I won't repeat, and I hit him in the mouth and immediately regretted it, because punching someone in the teeth hurts your knuckles more than any movie has ever suggested. Frank drove to the school. Didn't call first. Just showed up. Sat in the principal's office next to me with his work boots still on and sawdust on his collar from the cabinet shop where he worked back then. He smelled like wood shavings and coffee. He said to the principal, "My son doesn't start fights. He finishes them." What did the other kids say? The principal told him. Frank looked at me and said, "You did the right thing." 5 words. That's the version of my father I keep looking for at head tables and adoption ceremonies and holiday dinners. I keep looking and he keeps not being there. The man who smelled like sawdust and said 5 perfect words has been replaced by a man who puts his hand on a chair back and tells a 7-year-old she's not real. Frank's living room has a photo wall. I counted the frames last Thanksgiving while everyone was watching football, and I was standing in the hallway pretending to look at my phone. 17 framed photos. 14 are Tyler. Baseball team. School portrait. Birthday with cake. Action shot from soccer. Tyler with Frank at a game. Tyler on Frank's lap at Christmas. 2 are Nina's wedding. 1 is Frank and Lorraine's anniversary. 0 are Ava. 0 are Marcus. 0. 17 frames, and not a single one contains my children's faces. I mentioned it to Lorraine once, the only time I brought it up directly. She said, "We just haven't gotten around to updating it." The wall has been updated 3 times in 2 years. Tyler's 4th grade portrait went up in September. Tyler's travel team photo went up in November. Tyler's birthday photo, the one with the blue frosting on his chin that Frank called frame-worthy, went up in January. Updated 3 times for 1 grandchild. 0 times for 2. Back to December 22nd. The dinner. 6:15 p.m. The private dining room at Marcello's has exposed brick walls, a gas fireplace that David turns on for private events, and a 12-person table made of reclaimed oak that probably has a story about a barn in Vermont, but I didn't ask because I was paying $1,200 for the deposit and the barn's biography wasn't included. The room smelled like garlic bread and pine from the small tree I'd had delivered that morning, decorated with lights and positioned next to the gift table. 22 gifts stacked underneath. $2,800 of presents with someone else's name on the tags. The room was filling up. 12 people. Frank at the head of the table in a blazer I'd never seen. Lorraine next to him, wearing the pearl earrings she wears to events she considers important, which apparently includes dinners where her grandchildren are being moved behind pillars but does not include adoption ceremonies. Nina across from them, adjusting Tyler's collar. Tyler was in seat 4. Center. The seat that had my daughter's name on it 45 minutes ago until Nina walked in with pre-printed replacement cards in her handbag and rearranged my family's seating chart like a wedding planner working on someone else's event. I came back from checking the hostess stand. Jules caught my eye from across the room and gave me a look that professionals give when they've been warned about something and the warning is about to come true. While I was in the bathroom, Nina moved the chairs. Not just the cards, the actual place settings. She brought replacement name cards in her purse. Pre-printed. I know because the font was different from the ones the restaurant provided. She printed them at home. Brought them in her bag. She'd planned the seat swap before she walked through the door. Ava was walking toward the head table. She's 7. She was looking for her name. She knows what her name looks like. She learned to read it before she could tie her shoes. She was scanning the cards the way kids scan, with their whole body leaning forward. Frank put his hand on the back of the chair. Not aggressively. Casually. The way you'd stop someone from taking a reserved seat in a movie theater. He looked at Ava and said, "Those seats are for real grandkids, sweetheart." Sweetheart. He used the endearment while delivering the exclusion. The tenderness and the cruelty in the same sentence. The same breath. Ava's hand dropped. She looked at me. Didn't say a word. She walked toward my coat, which was hanging on a hook near the back of the room. She pressed her face into it. Lorraine was 3 feet away. She heard every word. She did nothing. Didn't correct Frank. Didn't offer a chair. Didn't reach for Ava. She adjusted her napkin and looked at the centerpiece. The woman who receives $800 a month from me, who opens gifts tagged with her name that she didn't buy, who didn't attend her son's adoption hearing, watched her granddaughter get told she wasn't real and adjusted a napkin. Marcus followed Ava. He's 5. He doesn't fully understand what real grandkids means, but he understands his sister's face. He held the hem of my jacket. Hank the dinosaur was in his other hand. My children were standing behind a decorative marble pillar near the back of the private dining room. Hidden, for feet from a table set for 12 at a dinner their father paid for. Behind a pillar like props that didn't make the final cut. I looked at the head table. Frank, Lorraine, Nina, Tyler in center seat with the printed card his mother brought from home. The $340 Burlo I'd ordered open and poured. The gifts under the tree I'd bought and wrapped and tagged with names that weren't mine. My money, my planning, my photographer, my children behind a pillar. I said, count to 15. Calm. The way you'd announce that dinner is served. The way a contractor reads a measurement before cutting. Flat. Precise. Nobody understood at first. Frank looked at me the way you look at a television that just changed channels by itself. Nina stopped adjusting Tyler's collar. Lorraine's hand started moving toward Frank's arm, but hadn't arrived yet, like a sentence that knows its own ending but isn't there yet. 1, 2, 3. I didn't count out loud after the first sentence. The count was mine. Internal. But the room felt it. The way a room feels a fuse burning even when you can't see the flame. At 4, Frank said, "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. At 7, Nina stood up. Didn't know why. Sat back down. At 11, Lorraine grabbed Frank's arm. Not because she disagreed with what he'd said. Because she recognized the tone. Lorraine has known me for 36 years. She's heard my calm before. She knows the difference between the calm that means I'm fine and the calm that means something is about to end. She said Frank. One word. No sentence after it. Just the name, spoken the way you'd say stop to someone walking toward an edge. At 13, I walked to the gift table. Picked up the first present. A box wrapped in silver paper with a green bow, containing a remote control car for Tyler that cost $89 and that I'd ordered from Amazon 3 weeks ago and wrapped at my kitchen table while Ava helped with the tape. I picked it up. Then the next one. A doll set for Tyler's friend's sister who was apparently coming. $34. Then a cashmere scarf for Lorraine. $120. Then a bottle of bourbon for Frank. $95. The bourbon he'll never taste because it was in my arms now, stacked against the other gifts, corners aligned. The way I stack everything, because I'm a man who builds things, and building things means structure, and structure means nothing falls. Nina said, "What are you doing?" Her voice was higher than usual. I didn't answer. I loaded gifts into the 2 bags I'd brought from the car, the same bags I'd carried them in with, because I keep the bags. I always keep the bags the way I keep the receipts, the way I keep the spreadsheet, the way I keep column F empty. Because some men track dollars and some men track dignity, and I've been tracking both for 3 years. 22 gifts. $2,800. All tagged from Grandma and Grandpa. I took every single one. The tree was bare in under 90 seconds. I know because Jules was still shooting. She captured the whole sequence. The tree going from full to empty in 12 frames. Nina said, "Those are from Mom and Dad." Her voice was now the voice of someone watching a building they thought was stable begin to list. I said, "Show me a receipt." Nobody showed me a receipt. Nobody could. Because there isn't one. There has never been one. For years of gifts and not a single purchase made by the people whose names were on the tags. At 15, I looked at Jules. Nodded once. Jules capped the lens. Started packing. She didn't ask questions because Jules is a professional, and professionals recognize when an event is over before the schedule says it is. I walked to David. He'd been standing near the kitchen door with the expression of a man who manages private events for a living and has seen enough family dinners end in silence to know the difference between a pause and a period. This was a period. I handed him my card. Close the tab. Cancel the private room hold. David processed the card. $4,200. The receipt printed. He tore it and handed it to me without comment. I folded it, put it in the folder. Before walking out, I reached into my coat, the same coat that still smelled like my daughter's tears and the restaurant's garlic bread, and pulled out the manila folder. 3 invoices. 3 seating charts. 3 years of photos. I slid it across the table to Frank. Didn't say a word. The folder landed between the burlo and the bread basket. Frank looked at it. Didn't open it. Didn't touch it. Looked at it the way you look at an envelope you already know the contents of because you wrote them yourself, one dinner at a time. Then I turned to the room. Not shouting. Cold. Measured. The way I read contract terms to clients who think they can renegotiate after the work is done. I said, "I've been paying $800 a month for 6 years to maintain the house where my children don't have a bedroom, but Tyler has his name on the door. That stops tonight." Nina's face changed. She didn't know. About the $800. About the gifts. About the $77,820 total. Her parents never told her. She'd been visiting the house her brother funded, opening champagne on a porch her brother subsidized, and arranging seating charts at dinners her brother paid for. and she didn't know the arithmetic behind any of it. The look on her face was the look of a person who just realized the floor they've been standing on was built by someone they just helped push behind a pillar. I picked up Ava with one arm. Her face was still damp from the coat. Took Marcus's hand. Hank dangled from his other fist, paper crown gone, but still present, still accounted for, which is more than I can say for anyone else in that room. We walked out. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look at Frank. The last thing I heard was Lorraine's voice saying my name once, from the table. Just Cole. The same way she'd said Frank at 11 seconds. Just the name. No sentence after it. I didn't turn around. The drive home was quiet. Ava fell asleep against the window, her green velvet dress bunched at the shoulder where the seatbelt pressed it. Marcus fell asleep holding Hank. His paper crown from the restaurant was already on the floor of the car along with a crayon he'd smuggled from somewhere and a receipt from the gas station. I stopped at that morning to buy mints because I thought tonight would be the kind of evening where you want fresh breath and steady hands. Camille was in the passenger seat. She didn't say anything for 20 minutes. The highway hummed. Headlights passed. The kind of silence where two people are thinking the same thing, but neither wants to go first. Then she put her hand on my knee and said, "You counted slow." I said, "I know. On purpose." I wanted them to feel every second. She didn't take her hand off my knee for the rest of the drive. That hand was the only part of the evening worth keeping. Part of me wanted to turn around, go back, stand at the head of that table, and read every line of every invoice into the candlelight until the Brûlot went cold and the tiramisu turned to cement. Part of me wanted to pretend it never happened. The way I pretended after year 1 and year 2, the way Lorraine pretends about the photo wall, the way Frank pretends the adoption hearing was the same day as a doctor's appointment he never had. And a small part of me, the part one don't talk about because it makes me sound 11 years old, wanted Frank to call me and say 5 words. Any 5. I'm sorry would have been 2. He could have spent the other 3 on anything. He didn't call that night. The fallout. Systematic. The way I document everything. Frank never opened the folder at dinner. It sat between the Brûlot and the bread basket for the rest of the evening, which according to Rachel lasted about 45 more minutes of silence broken only by the sound of forks that nobody was using and a waiter who came by 3 times to ask if anyone wanted dessert and was told, "Not yet," by Lorraine in a voice that meant, "Not ever." Nina eventually ordered tiramisu. $89. Nobody ate it. The charge showed up on my card 2 days later because I'd closed the tab, but the dessert was added after. I disputed it. 1. Lorraine opened the folder in the car. Rachel was still at the restaurant when she saw Frank and Lorraine's car in the parking lot. Interior light on. Lorraine reading. Frank staring at the windshield. Rachel texted me at midnight. "Your mom has been reading the folder in the car for 40 minutes. Your dad hasn't moved." Lorraine called me at 12:47 a.m. I was in bed. Phone screen lit the nightstand like a small cold fire. I watched it ring. Didn't answer. She called again at 1:15. Didn't answer. Voicemail at 1:22 a.m. I listened the next morning while making Ava's school lunch. 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Lorraine saying, "I didn't realize," in 11 different constructions. "I didn't realize it was this bad. I didn't realize the photos looked like that. I didn't realize you were carrying all of this." 11 versions of not knowing. 0 versions of the word sorry. 3 minutes and 12 seconds without the only 6 letters that would have mattered. The group chat surfaced 2 days later. Rachel forwarded it, the way Rachel forwards things, with an apologetic preamble text that says, "I'm sorry, but you need to see this," followed by a screenshot that proves she's right and the apology was earned. A conversation between Lorraine and Nina. December 20th. 2 days before the dinner. While I was at Jules's studio picking up prints. While I was in my living room wrapping 22 gifts with tags that said "From Grandma and Grandpa" in my handwriting, because even the handwriting was mine. Lorraine, 3:14 p.m. Just make sure Tyler's at the head table for the photos. Frank wants it that way. Nina, 3:22 p.m. What about Cole's kids? Lorraine, 3:25 p.m. They can sit with him on the side. It's easier. Easier. That word. 3 syllables. 11 letters. They planned the pillar 2 days before the dinner. While I was wrapping their gifts. The word easier does the same work in that text that sweetheart did in Frank's mouth. It makes the cruelty sound logistical. Reasonable. Just planning. Nina called me 2 days after the dinner. Her voice was different. Smaller. She said, Mom told me about the money. All of it. The $800 a month. The gifts. The dinners. I didn't know, Cole. I said, you brought printed name cards in your purse, Nina. Silence. For seconds. She said, Dad told me to. I said, and you did. She didn't call again. 19 words total. 19 words to end a relationship that started in the same crib. She used to steal my pillow because hers was too flat. I let her. That's what older brothers do. They give up the pillow. They give up the chair. They give up the seat at the table. Until the giving stops feeling like generosity and starts feeling like vanishing. Jules sent the final photo package a week later. 412 photos. Beautiful restaurant. Beautiful lighting. Beautiful people and beautiful clothes at a beautiful table, my money set. She included a separate folder labeled Pillar Sequence. 18 photos. Chronological. Shot 1. Ava reaching for the chair, fingers extended. Shot 2. Frank's hand on the chair back. Shot 3. His mouth open, forming the words. Ava's eyes on his face. Shot 4. Ava's hand dropping. Shot 5. The walk to the coat. Shot 6. Face pressing into the wool. Shot 7. Marcus arriving, holding the jacket hem, Hank dangling. Shots 8 through 18. The count. The gifts being loaded. The empty tree. Nina's face. Frank's untouched folder. Lorraine's hand on his arm. David processing the card. The exit. My daughter on my hip. My son's hand in mine. 18 photos that tell the entire story without a narrator. Jules's invoice note. No additional charge for the supplementary folder. Consider it my professional opinion. I sent the 3-year photo compilation to the extended family the following week. Not the pillar photos. Those are mine. I sent the regular holiday dinner photos from all 3 years with a subject line. Find my children. 847 photos. 23 appearances. 0 head table. 0 formal group. The responses came in over 4 days. Aunt Margaret called Lorraine. How did I not see this? Uncle Pete texted me. I should have noticed. Rachel called and actually cried. Real tears over a phone connection that crackled because she lives where cell service is more suggestion than infrastructure. She said, I thought they were just bad at group photos. I said, they're excellent at group photos. They're very precise about who's in them. The photo wall at Frank's house, the one with 17 frames and 0 of my children, became a topic at family gatherings I wasn't at. Rachel reported. People walked past that wall and saw what wasn't there. The absence became visible because someone finally named it. Frank left a voicemail 4 days after the dinner. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I've listened to it once. Started hot. You humiliated your mother in front of everyone. Got strategic. Those photos don't show the full story. Got soft. Maybe we can have another dinner, just us. Do it right. Ended empty. I don't understand why this is such a big deal. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. He said, your mother twice. He said the family 3 times. He said Tyler once. He said Ava's name 0 times. Marcus's name 0 times. He called my children this, and such a big deal. I saved the voicemail. Filed it in the same folder as the receipts and the screenshots. Column F. First month without the $800. Silence. Second month, Lorraine called about a property tax situation. County notice. I said, I told you at the dinner. The payment stopped. She said, we thought you were just upset. I said, I was upset. And the payment stopped. Both things are true at the same time. Frank and Lorraine are $1,600 behind. The house where Tyler has his name on a door and my children have never slept is carrying a lien. The math isn't complicated. The feelings are. Christmas morning. My house. Small tree. Gifts I bought. Tagged with my own name this time. Not from Grandma and Grandpa. From Dad and Mom. Because that's who bought them. That's who stood in the store. That's whose hands wrapped them at midnight while the kids were asleep. Marcus opened dinosaur figurines that are apparently members of Hank's expanding social circle, which now includes a Triceratops named Steve and a Brontosaurus named Kevin. I don't understand the naming convention. I don't need to. At Frank and Lorraine's house, the tree was empty. They had no gifts for Tyler. Never bought any. I'd been buying all of them for 4 years, and they never purchased backups because they never considered the possibility that the supply would stop. Tyler arrived Christmas morning to a tree with lights and nothing beneath them. Lorraine called me at 9:14 a.m. I was making pancakes. Ava was taking Polaroid photos of Marcus trying to balance Steve the Triceratops on Hank's head. Tyler doesn't have any presents. That sounds like something his grandparents should handle. We always counted on you, Cole. I know. That's the problem. I hung up. Went back to the pancakes. Flipped them. They were burning slightly. They were fine. 6 months later. December again. Ava is 8 now. Taller. Still picks green when she can. Camille put up a small tree in the living room. No private dining room. No prefix. No seating chart. No pillar. No folder. Ava opened the first box. The Polaroid camera she'd been asking about since she got a taste of it last Christmas. She charged it in 11 minutes, which she timed on the microwave clock because Ava times everything now, which she gets from me, which is either a gift or a diagnosis, depending on who you ask. She pointed it at the kitchen table. Me. Camille. Marcus sitting sideways in his chair because Marcus has never once sat in a chair the way the chair was designed to accommodate a human body. Hank the dinosaur propped on the table wearing a paper crown Marcus made from a napkin. Steve and Kevin nearby. The full squad. Flash. Whir. The photo slid out. Ava shook it. Every kid in every decade shakes Polaroids. Nobody knows why. It doesn't help. But she shook it and then held it up and looked at it and smiled the way she smiles when something is exactly what she wanted it to be. For people and a dinosaur. She walked to the fridge and stuck it up with a magnet. Nobody was behind anything. Nobody was moved. Nobody's name was on a replacement card printed at home and smuggled in a purse. Nobody was told they weren't real. The table had 4 chairs, all occupied. Even the dinosaur had a seat. That was the whole Christmas. If your family ever made your kids feel like they didn't belong at a table you built, I'd read that story. Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if this one hit.